everyone. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Ben Center, and I'm a business value consultant from Atlassian. And this is a picture of my first car. It's a 2001 Toyota Corolla, and when I was first learning to drive, it was perfect. But as I started getting older, it started changing. I started comparing more to what my friends were driving, and I started noticing that more days stuck at the shop meant more days for me stuck at home. So once I finally began my long overdue search, I realized a couple of things. First, it was going to be hard to let go of something I'd spent so long taking care of. And second, this new car was going to be a lot more expensive. But I had to be honest with myself. I knew my time and money was going to be better spent in something newer and better suited to my future needs. Plus, was it even fair to compare two cars from different decades? Eventually, I came around, realizing that I had to think differently about what I was actually getting from this new car. Now, just like my new car journey, all of you today are on some sort of journey of growth, right? Not just with our tools, but as organizations. And a critical part of that journey is investing in modern platforms that fit your current and future needs. With Atlassian Cloud specifically, sometimes that investment is a lot higher upfront than what you may have been paying for historically. But just like I discovered during my car search, the Atlassian Cloud platform and cloud in general opens up a whole new range of possibilities for how your teams work. Now, many of you are exploring a cloud migration today of your Atlassian tools, or maybe you're focused on driving some other strategic initiative at your company. Either way, we're here today to help equip you with tools and tips for building a strong business case to advocate for positive change. I'm thrilled today to be joined by Dave Caradonna from Splunk. Dave, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Caradonna. I'm the AVP of Strategic Programs at Splunk. I've been with Splunk for 8 years. I report into the specialist org, which includes cloud advisors, value advisors, industry advisors, and technology advisors. I'm super glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Ben.
Absolutely. Happy to have you, Dave. So by the end of this presentation, our goal here is to help you understand what goes into a strong business case, and also to apply what Dave and I have observed from working with our clients at both Atlassian and at Splunk to apply to your own scenario and articulate value drivers for your organization. And lastly, we hope that you can look beyond just costs to make a more compelling case for getting what you want from your leadership. Now, as we mentioned, every organization is on their own journey, right? Whether it's rapid growth to meet rising demand, digital transformation to appeal to a hybrid workforce, or as we've seen in the last few years, pivoting into totally new markets or segments that have come up. Now, it's no secret technology is one of those levers to accelerate that journey. So Dave, tell us a little bit about how Splunk supports your customers on their journeys with your technology.
Sure. Well, Splunk is a data platform, and we're used to monitor and search through any kind of machine data, making it actionable through proactive alerts. And we have over 20,000 customers, and our primary markets are IT ops, DevOps, security, and many different industry-specific use cases. So it's safe to say that Splunk customers have their own unique data journey. And to support them, what we do at Splunk is we use a prescriptive approach to understand where our customers are and where they need to be, so that we can prescribe the right sequence of use cases and data sources, ultimately that enable the right outcomes in the right order for their business.
So Dave, I heard you mention outcomes. Do these type of outcomes, and I know that's a theme we'll cover later on, but do these outcomes actually depend on a migration to cloud?
Well, these outcomes, they don't always depend on cloud, but these outcomes, I would say, do get accelerated by moving to cloud. And that has become the reason why cloud is so important. If I was to summarize the case for a cloud strategy in one simple statement, based on what I've learned at Splunk, I'd say that cloud allows our customers to get to their business outcomes faster with less risk. And that is the basis for a successful cloud business case at Splunk.
Awesome. Yeah. And Dave, just like you mentioned, no matter where our customers are in their journey, it's obvious that cloud technology specifically is one of the most significant amplifiers for business growth, right? And look, there's no shortcut here for migrating to cloud, and we'll cover that later on. And it's difficult. It requires effort, a lot of upfront investment. And you might be thinking that the status quo is the safest bet. But at the same time, we've been hearing the beating drum of cloud and SaaS for years, right? It's not new, and nothing on this slide should be that surprising, right? You already know the traditional benefits, but today we want to encourage you to think beyond not just your current day-to-day and not just the service benefits of cloud, but instead think about how IT can actually become an enabler for the business in driving meaningful change. Dave, tell us a little bit about what you've heard from Splunk's customers about where they've been able to find value from using the Splunk platform.
Yeah, let me flash this slide really quickly, Ben, to outline the general value that Splunk provides. And you can see the three main value drivers here organized by market for IT ops, DevOps, and security. And I know you're familiar with some of this, Ben, because you're a proud Splunk customer. But this value is our foundation. It's why Splunk was created. So this value really gets realized whether you're in the cloud or not. Now, what our customers gain from migrating to our cloud platform is really an acceleration towards these value drivers, which leads to new use cases. It leads to new business services, and ultimately it accelerates their business outcomes, right? And that acceleration really comes from four key elements. If we can flip to the next slide, I'll talk you through those four elements. We call it the RISE cloud value model. So it's an acronym we came up with to describe these four quadrants. Reallocation of platform admin time towards higher value work is really key, and I'll share more information on that in a few slides. I for innovation through new features, which we release at Splunk on a monthly basis. That's done through our Splunk Cloud team. We bring it to our cloud platform first. We bring these features to the cloud platform first. Or in some cases, we bring those features only to the cloud platform, which makes that platform more valuable. And security, of course, that's a big chunk of time that our customers take to maintain and manage compliance. Well, since we manage Splunk for our customers, we are liable for maintaining that right level of security and compliance so our customers can save time by us doing that. And the last quadrant on the lower right is efficiency. We manage thousands of Splunk deployments around the clock. And so we're constantly updating our best practices, which ultimately produce very high SLAs. And so for our customers, don't have to worry about hiring and training and retaining Splunk talent to maintain that type of efficiency within the platform.
Dave, this is awesome. I love how you can boil this down into a nice acronym, but there's some powerful stuff here. So now that we have these baseline concepts, can you actually quantify this bonus value you're talking about?
Absolutely. As BVCs, right? That's what we do. So yes, we have a solid approach that quantifies the value tied to this model, because this model brings incremental value, right? So how do we narrow down that dollar benefit to those four quadrants? But I'll say that it all relates to the value of getting to business outcomes faster with less risk. And I can show you an example of how we do this. I'd like to start with a benchmark, yes, on this slide. This is an important benchmark that we ran at Splunk in a non-cloud environment, which is what you're seeing here in this first pie chart. You can break down the time of a Splunk admin into two types of buckets. The first bucket is spent discovering and implementing new use cases, which drives value for the business. So clearly the most important chunk of time here is depicted in that pink color. Then there's all the other tasks, right? The onboarding of data and managing the platform. And that's about 80% of an admin's time, and that's depicted in gray. Typically, this has lower value to the business because you're simply maintaining the platform. Now, what happens when you move to cloud, because we manage most of the platform activities, the platform management activities, when you do the math, moving to cloud really reallocates up to about 35 percentage points of time towards that higher value work. And you can see that again depicted in pink. And that work is used to implement new use cases, and that's where the value is. Remember that 35% is a benchmark baseline for now. I'll cover that more in a few slides, but that is a fundamental component to determining, what that dollar value is with a cloud strategy. Now, visually, if you go to the next slide, if you were to draw a vertical axis, depicting value realization, and time on the horizontal axis, you would get really two very different curves, as you can see on this slide.
Yeah, Dave, this is a powerful visual here. Is this what you were talking about in terms of realizing that value faster in cloud?
Yes, I mean, you can see in the orange slide, there's all these additional activities that are required to maintain, comply, upgrade the platform, and just, basically putting the foundation in place so that users can start using the platform. Whereas the pink curve, our customers hit the ground running immediately by focusing on using the platform versus maintaining it, which drives faster time to market with new use cases. And therefore, again, I'm going to come back to this theme, faster outcomes.
Yeah, Dave, this reminds me of what we hear from Atlassian customers all the time who are moving to cloud. And basically they can deliver the best of what Atlassian has to offer immediately to their users, right? Which means that their users are actually happier and, of course, driving more output for the business. And we've been seeing similar savings that you showed on the last slide, anywhere from 25 to 50% time savings for IT. But as I'll touch on later, we're also seeing big productivity savings as well on the end user level. Are those the type of benefits that you're hearing too from Splunk customers?
Yeah, here's a slide on some sample statements from what customers are telling us. Not getting paged at 2:00 in the morning to respond to a platform issue, or just freeing up time to work on more fulfilling, activities like helping the business develop new use cases and new services, and never having to worry about, upgrading or securing the platform. And you can see these statements from actual customers, but ultimately, I think that these types of call outs apply to not just Splunk, they apply to any SaaS business. Ben, I'm assuming you're seeing similar feedback on your end, right?
Yeah, we are, Dave. And this is a quote that I think carries over a lot of the same themes that you just shared. I spoke with a Fortune 100 healthcare company that migrated to Atlassian Cloud last year, and they shared this revelation that once in cloud, their IT team realized all that time spent care and feeding, like you said, all those extra activities can now actually be leveraged to have a bigger impact on the business through, in this case, customer service, right? And most importantly, their ability to focus more on their customers means they get more done with fewer resources, which results in additional savings, right? Now, this really gets to the heart of how a strong cloud business case requires this paradigm shift, because you might be thinking, what's changing from my status quo, or what's different from on-prem? Where the really powerful question is, what's possible with a new platform? And this type of mindset is going to put you in the best position to construct a comprehensive business case for undertaking a cloud migration. Now, it's important to note, though, IT savings is only one piece of the overall value from an Atlassian cloud migration. See, our cloud platform is actually built on a totally different architecture from our on-prem product. So what we're hearing from customers, which is the biggest driver of value, and a lot of times the biggest surprise, is that the increase in end user productivity from cloud-only features is making the biggest difference, right? Examples like native integration and automation is reducing manual work and saving time at scale, right? Here's an example of time savings from a customer who just migrated to cloud last year. Their users saw over an hour a week saved from cloud-only features that improved their experience and accelerated their productivity, right? As we mentioned earlier. Now, remember, we're talking here about reallocating time to more impactful work for the business, right? And this customer never would have seen this as a possibility. The goal here is not necessarily to make our case on this number alone, but it's to shift the conversation about seeing that big picture, right? Which is your business delivering to your customers faster. Now, Dave, I'm sure this question is on everyone's mind. What about cost, right? We can talk about value for hours, We love it. We're passionate. But at the end of the day, when you're bringing in the proposal or when you're signing an investment, there needs to be a price tag, right? So let's think back to my new car story for a second. Was cost the only factor driving a decision that's significant? No, of course not. But Dave, what's your and Splunk's perspective on how to think about the relationship between cost and value?
Yeah, great question. Well, cost, first of all, should always be a factor of your business case, especially with cloud, because the cost structure is different, right, with cloud. But cost should not be the only factor in your business case. You should always include a perspective on the incremental cloud value. And usually, once you combine these two components, the cloud cost and the cloud value, you'll get a positive return on investment. You take the incremental cloud cost and you subtract that from your incremental cloud value, and you should get a positive ROI. Now, I'll give you a very simple example of how you can get to hard numbers, because I think this is what we're all here about, right? At the end of the day, you have to show a percentage ROI and quantify that benefit. So what I recommend that you do is take the number of hours saved by moving to cloud. And remember that 35% benchmark I shared earlier. In this example, I'm taking that and I'm quantifying, how many hours can be saved. So you can make some safe assumptions on what you can do with those hours, but turn those hours into business value, whatever that means for your business. You can see here in this example some conservative parameters that I've used for a Splunk deployment that has 2.5 admins. That's typically about a terabyte deployment, would yield 1.1 million in added cloud value. That's that incremental cloud value, which can then be compared to any incremental cost for migrating to cloud to get your net positive business case. So Ben, how about you? Do you have any other examples like this that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I do, Dave. And these numbers are super powerful. I'm sure that some people watching are taking notes. Here's another example here of a customer who moved to cloud last year. Now they saw an immediate $500,000 savings from cutting down on redundant tooling. So Dave, similar to your slide before, this is one particular use case where the built-in road mapping capability of Jira Cloud allowed this customer to eliminate a redundant tool. So they obviously saw savings from software costs, but also labor costs of having to manage that separate tool. Now there were hard dollar savings here, but also there's the business benefit, right, of consolidating data, making it easier to compile reporting and tracking the status of work, right? So there's two different ways to think about this. And you might recognize this slide. The reason that I kept the format consistent with an example I shared earlier is to encourage you to leverage a specific framework for powerfully communicating these potential value drivers for your business, right? As you identify all these different examples in working with your team and working with other resources, this type of format is a great example for how to effectively communicate that vision. So Dave, in closing, what would you leave our audience with if they wanted to either work with Splunk or remember some of the tips and tricks that you shared today?
Yeah, sure. Well, as a general rule, when you build your case for change, always focus on the value first and then the cost. When migrating to cloud, what I find is that most people only focus on the cost. So don't forget that incremental cloud value, or call it bonus cloud value, because it's value you get simply by changing your deployment strategy, right? And that incremental cloud value is going to offset your cost. Now, SaaS providers like Splunk and Atlassian should be able to do this for you. At Splunk, we help our customers uncover their cloud potential with 3 different offerings. The first one is a use before you buy, and we do this for very specific use cases where you can get a chance to play in the cloud with your own data. We call this the Autobahn program. It's a fast lane to value, essentially. And the second option is for existing customers. We have an app called the Splunk Migration Assessment app, which is available for free on our Splunk-based site to help plan a cloud migration. And then the last offering is a Splunk Cloud value assessment to help you build this full-on, custom business case that quantifies the cloud cost and the actual return on investment, comparing that to the benefits that the incremental cloud value brings to a specific environment.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing those, Dave. Now, for those of you who are preparing or are already in the midst of building a business case for Atlassian Cloud, here are a few things to remember. In addition to focusing on those hard savings that you heard about today from IT, infrastructure, and reallocated time, think also about how your end users will benefit from instant access to the latest and greatest features that are only available in cloud, getting more done in less time, right? And instead of asking what's different, think about asking what's possible with a new cloud platform. Now, internally, ask around to see if there's a business case template that's commonly used in your organization. This is going to help make it a lot easier for you to present to leadership or to compile the necessary information to present it in a clean way. Regardless, lean on Atlassian. We're here to help, whether it's a public business case toolkit that you'll be able to access along with this presentation, or if you have an assigned account team, then they'd be happy to support you as well. Dave, thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed it, sharing all your insights and experience in guiding customers through building strong business cases. And to those of you listening, thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you, Ben.